I'm Claire. My Chinese name is Mao Yiting. My student number is S0542101. I'm sophomore, major in Chinese. The topic of the speech is Life in the Deep Ocean. The speaker name is David Gallo. Applause. David Gallo. This is Spelling. I'm David Gallo, and we are going to tell you some story from the sea here in video. We've got some of the most incredible video of Titanic that has ever been seen, and we are not going to show you any of it. Laughter. The truth of the matter is that the Titanic, even though it's breaking all sorts of box office records, it's not the most exciting story from the sea. And the problem, I think, is that we take the ocean for granted. When you think about it, the ocean are 75% of the planet. Most of the planet is ocean water. The average depth is about 2 miles. Part of the problem, I think, is we stand at the beach or we see image like this or of the ocean, and you look out at this great big blue expanse, and it's shimmering, it's moving, and there's wave, and there's soft, and there's tight, but you have no idea for what lies in there. In the ocean, there are the longest mountain ranges on the planet. Most of the animals are in the oceans. Most of the earthquakes, volcanoes are in the sea, at the bottom of the sea. The biodiversity and the biodensity in the ocean is higher in place than it is in the rainforest. It is mostly unexplored, and yet there are beautiful sights like this that captivate us and make us become familiar with it. But when you are standing at the beach, I want you to think that you are standing at the edge of a very unfamiliar world. We have to have a very special technology to get into that unfamiliar world. We use the submarine avion and use cameras, and these cameras are something that Bill Lang has developed with the help of Sony. Marshall Park said the true voyage of discovery is not so much in seeking new landscapes as in having new eyes. People that have partnered with us have given us new eyes, not only on what exists, the new landscapes at the bottom of the sea, but also how we think about life on the planet itself. Here's a jelly. It's one of my favorites, but because it got all sorts of working parts. This turned out to be the longest creature in the ocean. It gets out about 115 feet long, but see all those different working things? I love that kind of stuff. I got these fishing lures on the bottom. They are going up and down. It got tentacles dangling, swirling around like that. It is a colonial animal. These are all individual animals banding together to make this one creature, and it's got its jet thrusted up in front that it will use in a moment, and a little light. If you take all the big fish and schooling fish and all that, put them on one side of the scale, put all the jelly type of animals on the other side, those guys win hands down. Most of the biomass in the ocean is made of creatures like this. Here's the X-wing death jelly. Laughter. The bioluminescence they use the light for attracting mates and attracting prey and communicating. We couldn't begin to show you our actual stuff from jellies. They come in all different sizes and shapes. Bailing. We tend to forget about the fact that the ocean is miles deep on the average, and that's where we are real familiar with the animals that are in the first 200 and 300 feet. We are not familiar with what exists from there all the way down to the bottom, and there are the types of animals that live in there that three-dimensional space, the microgravity environment that we really haven't explored. You hear about giant squid and things like that, but some of these animals get out to be approximately 140-160 feet long. They are very little understood. David Gallo. This is one of them, another one of our favorites, because it's a little octopus. You can actually see through his head, and here he is, flapping with his ear and very gracefully going up. We see those at all depths, and even at the greatest depths. They go from a couple of inches to a couple of feet. They come right up to the submarine. They put their eyes right up to the window and peek inside the sub. This is really a world within a world. We are going to show you too. In this case, we are passing down through the mid-ocean and we see creatures like this. This is the kind of an undersea rooster. This guy that looks incredibly formal in a way. And then one of my favorites, water face. This is basically scientific data that you are looking at. It's footage that we collect for scientific purpose, and that's one of the things that Bill's been doing. Is providing scientists with this first view of animals like this in a world where they belong. They don't catch them in a net. They are actually looking at them down in the world. We are going to take a joystick sitting from our computer on the Earth and press the joystick forward and fly around the planet. We are going to look at the mid-ocean ridge, a 40,000-mile-long mountain range. The average depth at the top of it is about a mile and a half. We are over near the Atlantic. That's a ridge right there, but we are going to across the Caribbean, Central America, and end up against the Pacific, 9 degrees north. We make maps of this mountain range with sound, with sonar, and this is one of those mountains range. We are coming around a clear here on the right. The height of these mountains on either side of this valley is greater than the Alps in most cases, and there's tens of thousands of those mountains out there that have been mapped yet. This is volcanic ridge. We are getting down further and further in scale, and eventually we can come up with something like this. This is an icon of our robot. Jason is called, and you can sit in a room like this with a joystick and a handset and drive a robot like that around the bottom of the ocean in real time. One of the things we are trying to do at Woods Hole with our partners to bring this to virtual world. Let's store this unexplored region back to the laboratory because we see it in bits and pieces right now. We see it either as sound or see it as video or see it as a photograph or see it as a chemical sensors, but we never had yet put it all together into one interesting picture. Here's where Bill's camera really do shine. This is what called hydrothermal vent, and what you are seeing here is a cloud of densely packed hydrogen softly rich water coming out of the volcanic excess on the sea floor, gets up to 600-700 degrees, somewhere in that range. So that's all water under the sea, 1.5 miles, 2 miles, 3 miles down. And we knew it was volcano back in 60s, 70s, and then we have some hints that this thing exists all along that axis of it, because you have got volcanism, water going to get down from the sea into cracks in the sea floor, come in contact with magma, and come shooting out hot. We were really aware that it would be so rich with softies, hydrogen softies. We didn't have any idea about these things, which we call chemies. This is one of these hydrothermal vents, 700 degrees water coming out of the earth. One either side of us are mountain range and they are higher than Alps, so the setting here is very dramatic. The white material is a type of a bacteria that thrives at 180 degrees centigrade. David Gallo. I think that's one of the greatest stories right now that we are seeing from the bottom of the sea, is that the first thing we're seeing coming out of the sea floor after volcanic eruption is bacteria, and we started to wonder for a long time, how did it get down there? What we find out now is that it's probably coming from inside the earth. Not only it is coming out of the earth, so biogenesis made from volcano activity, but that bacteria supports these colonies of life. The pressure here is 4,000 pounds per square inch, 1.5 miles from the surface to 2 miles to 3 miles. No sun has ever gotten down here. All the energy to support this life form is coming from inside the earth, so chemosynthesis, and you can see how dense the population is. They are called the tube worms. Building. These worms have no digestive system. They have no mouth, but they have two types of gill structures. One for extracting oxygen out of the deep sea water, another one which houses this chemosynthetic bacteria, which takes the hydrothermal fluid, that hot water that you see coming out of the bottom, that converts that into simple sugars that the tube worms can digest. David Gallo. You can see here is a crab that lives down here. He's managed to grab a tip of these worms. Now, they normally retreat as soon as a crab touches them. Oh, good going. So as soon as a crab touches them, they retreat down into their shells, just like your fingernails. There's a whole story being played out here that we are just now beginning to have some idea of because of this new camera technology. Building. These worms live in a real temperature extreme. Their food is at about 200 degrees centigrade, and their head is out at 3 degrees centigrade. So it's like having your head in boiling water and your foot in freezing water. That's how they like to live. Laughter. David Gallo. This is a female of this kind of worm, and here's the male. You watch. It doesn't take long before two guys here. This one and one will show up over there, started to fight. Everything you see is played out in the pitch black of the deep sea. There are never any lights there, except the lights that we bring. Here they go. On one of the last dive series, we count 200 species in these areas. 198 were new species. Building. One of the big problems is that for biologists working at this site, it's rather difficult to collect these animals, and they disintegrate on the way up, so the imagery is critical for the science. David Gallo. 2 outposts at about 2 miles depth. This pressure thing really amazed me. That this animal can exist there at a depth with pressure enough to crush the Titanic like an empty plastic can. What we saw up until now was from the Pacific. This is from the Atlantic, even greater depth. You can see that this shark is harassing this poor little guy here, and he will bat it away with his claw. Whack. Laughter. And the same thing is going on over there. What they are getting at is that on the back of this crab, the full stop here is this very strange bacteria that lives on the backs of these animals. And what these sharks are trying to do is actually harvest the bacteria from the backs of these animals. And the crabs don't like it at all. These long filaments that you see on the back of the crab are actually created by the product of the bacteria. So the bacteria grows here on the crab. On the back, you see this again. The red dot is laser light of the submarine element to give us an idea about how far away we are from the vents. Those are sharp. You see the hot water over there, here, and here coming down. They are clinging to a rock face and actually scraping bacteria off that rock face. Here's a tiny little vent that's kind of the size of that pillar. Those pillars get out to several stories. So here, you have got this valley with this incredible island landscape of pillars and hot springs and volcanic eruptions and earthquakes, inhabited by these very strange animals that live only on chemical energy coming off the ground. They don't need the sun at all. Building. You see this white V-shaped mark on the back of the shark is actually a licensing organ. It's how they find the hydrothermal vents. The vents are emitting a black body radiation and IR signature, and so they are able to find these vents at considerable distance. David Gallo. All this stuff is happening along that 40,000 miles long mountain range that we are calling the ribbon of life, because just even today, as we speak, there's a life being generated there from volcano activity. This is the first time we will ever try this any place. We are going to try to show you high definition from the Pacific. We are moving up one of these pillars. This is one several stories tall. In it, you will see that it's a habitat for a lot of different animals. There's a funny kind of hot plate here, with vent water coming out of it. So all of these are individual homes for worms. Now here's a closer view of that community. Here's crab here, worms here. There are smaller animals crawling around. Here's propaganda structure. I think this is the neatest looking thing. I just can't get over this, that you have got this little community sitting here smoking away. This stuff is toxic as hell, but by the way, you can never get a permit to dump this in the ocean, and it's coming out from it. Laughter. It is unbelievable. It's basically these sulfuric acid and is being just dumped out at incredible rates. And animals are thriving, and we probably came from here. That's probably where we evolved from. Gallo, this bacteria that we've been talking about turns out to be the most simplest form of life found. There are a number of groups that are proposing the life involved at these vent sites. Although the vent sites are short-lived, an individual site may last only 10 years or so. As an ecosystem, we've been stable for millions, well, billions of the years. David Gallo, it works too well. You see there's some fish inside here as well. There's a fish sitting here. Here's a crab with his claw right at the end of the tube worm, waiting for that worm to stick his head out. Laughter. Billy Lake. The biologists right now cannot explain why these animals are so active. The worms are growing each per week. David Gallo, I'm already said that this side from a human perspective is toxic as hell. Not only that, but on top, the lifeblood, that pumping system turns off every year or so. Their pumping system turns off, so the side have to move. And then there's earthquake, there's volcanic eruption on the order of 1 every 5 years that completely wipes the area out. Despite that, this animal grow back in about a year's time. We are talking about biodensities and biodiversity again, higher than the rainforest and just brings back to life. Is it sensitive? Yes. Is it fringe? No, it's not really very fringe. I will end up with saying one thing. There's a story in the sea, in the water of the sea, in the sediments and the rocks of the sea floor. It is an incredible story. What we see when we look back in time in those sediments and rocks is a record of Earth's history. Everything on this planet, everything was by cycle and rhythms. These continents move apart, they come back together. Ocean comes and go, mountains come and go, glacier comes and go, El Nino comes and goes. It's not a disaster, it's rhythmic. What we are learning now is almost like a symphony. It's just like music. It's just like music. And what we are learning now is that you can't listen to a 5 billion year long symphony. Get to today and say, "Star, we want tomorrow's note to be the same as it was today." It's absurd. It's just absurd. So what we have got to learn now is to find out where this planet is going at all these different scales and work with it. Learn to manage it. The concept of preservation is futile. Conservation tougher, but we can probably get there. Thank you very much. Thank you. Applause.